It started with a contraction, not a sudden one, not movie-style water breaking in an elevator. Just a low, twisting ache that made me pause at the kitchen counter. I was peeling apples. Brayburn's, his favorite. For the stupid pie I was, making because Darren said he was craving something homey. I glanced at the time. 4:42 p.m., 3 days before my due date. By 5:20, I'd texted Darren twice. Me. Think labor's starting. Where are you? Me. Contractions are regular. Heading. To hospital now? Nothing. No response. I told myself he was just driving, that he'd show up, that my husband of 4 years, the man who held my hand through every ultrasound and kissed my belly every night before bed, wouldn't disappear now. I showered fast, grabbed the hospital bag I'd packed a week ago, and slid into the car alone. I'd practiced the drive. It wasn't far. I wasn't panicking. Not yet. By the time I was being wheeled into labor and delivery, Darren still hadn't replied. Nurses asked if he was on his way. I lied, said he was parking. That was around 6:15. By 7, I stopped lying. I said I didn't know. The nurse, her name was Tasha, touched my arm gently and whispered, "You're doing amazing, sweetheart. We've got you." But I didn't feel amazing. I felt abandoned. Between contractions, I stared at the beige walls and thought about how Darren promised he'd be there the moment she came into the world. He'd picked the name Sienna. He said he wanted to hold her first, that he wanted to be the one to cut the cord. But he wasn't here. He finally called. 8:17 p.m. I was between contractions, sweating and furious and raw. I answered, "Where the hell are you?" Static. Then, "Hey, I'm so sorry. I got caught up. I'll explain. Later." "Explain what?" "Darren, I'm in labor." My voice cracked. "Why haven't you?" "I'll come tomorrow, okay?" I messed up. "But you've got nurses there. You'll be fine." The line went dead. I gave birth to our daughter at 9:06 p.m. I held her with shaking arms and sobbed into her little hat. She was beautiful. Dark curls, big eyes, perfect. But I couldn't stop wondering why he wasn't there. Why he didn't care. What could be more important than this moment? The next morning, Darren still hadn't shown. Instead, I got a text from my cousin Tara. It just said, "Hey, is everything okay? I think you should see this." Attached was a photo, Darren, at Lake Windmere Grill, our spot, the booth by the window. 2 wine glasses, 1 candle between them, and across from him, Melanie, my childhood friend, my maid of honor. Her hand rested on his. She was smiling. The photo was time-stamped. 8:03 p.m. He was ordering wine at our anniversary restaurant while I was alone, screaming through labor. I didn't cry. I stared at the screen until my vision blurred. Then I got out of the hospital bed, walked to the mirror, and looked at myself. Puffy eyes, dry lips. IV still taped to my hand, and I made a quiet promise. He would regret the day he chose her over us. But not now. Not loudly. Not recklessly. I would wait. I would heal. I would build my strength. And when I moved, I'd make sure he never saw it coming. Darren finally showed up. 3 days later. He walked into the hospital room like a man returning from a business trip, a cheap bouquet in hand and a sheepish look that made my stomach twist. Sienna was asleep in her little plastic bassinet beside me, wrapped tight in the yellow blanket the nurses had given her. He glanced at her, then at me. "Hey, babe. Babe." I studied his face like it was a crime scene. Messy hair, shirt unbuttoned at the top, lip gloss on his collar, Melanie's brand. I knew it. She used to make me try it on. 3 days, I said quietly. He rubbed the back of his neck. I know. I screwed up. I panicked. I wasn't ready. It was all happening so fast. And yet you had time for wine. I looked him dead in the eye. At Lake Windermere, his mouth opened, closed. He blinked. "It's not what you think," I nearly laughed. "You want to try that line again?" He shifted his weight. "Okay, it was just dinner. It didn't mean anything. And you skipped your daughter's birth. For something that meant nothing?" He had no answer. I picked up Sienna and held her close, kissed her forehead, then turned to him. "You need to leave." "Wait, Elle, please. Let's just talk this out." "Out there," I said, nodding toward the door. "Not here, not around her." He hesitated, but something in my face must have told him I meant it. He left without another word. The hospital social worker offered to contact a family member. I told her there was no one. My mother passed 3 years ago. My dad lived 2 states away and hadn't returned a call in over 8 months. My friends? Half of them were closer to Melanie now. No. There was just me and Sienna. I didn't scream. I didn't call anyone. I didn't post a thing. I waited. When I got home, the house was too clean, like someone tried to erase something. I found Melanie's hairbrush on the vanity, her lip balm in the drawer. I took a picture of everything, every trace. I slid it all into a box, labeled it proof, and sealed it shut. Darren tried to pretend. Nothing happened. He brought groceries, tried to hold Sienna, left sticky notes that said things like, "Need anything?" and "You're amazing." I didn't respond. I didn't argue. I let him speak. Let him dig his hole with every excuse. At night. I stayed up nursing Sienna and researching accounts, passwords. His phone backed up to our shared cloud, photos of Melanie. Chats full of, "I wish it were you in bed with me," and "She doesn't make me feel alive anymore." He sent her photos from my baby shower, photos of me holding my belly. He wrote, "I feel trapped, but I have to wait for the right time to leave." I took screenshots of everything. I backed it all up, multiple folders, one on the cloud, one on a USB, one emailed to myself. Then I smiled. Because now, I wasn't just hurt. I was armed. A week passed, then 2. Darren asked if we could start fresh. Said he'd ended things with Melanie. Said he wanted his family back. I nodded. Smiled faintly. Said, "Sure, let's talk about it." He looked so relieved. Like he'd gotten away with it. Like I was that naive. So I offered him a warm dinner, pasta, his favorite. Lit a candle at the table, and while he twirled his fork and said he was glad we're getting back to normal, I slipped the USB into my bag. Because the next step wasn't dinner. It was contacting a lawyer, and calling the one person I hadn't spoken to since Mom's funeral. My Aunt Noreen, a retired judge. I was done playing small. I hadn't spoken to Aunt Noreen in almost 5 years. Not since my mom's funeral, when Darren whispered behind my back that she was manipulative and too nosy about our finances. I'd believed him then. I was tired, grieving, lonely, but now? I saw the pattern. Darren had been isolating me from every person with teeth. Aunt Noreen was sharp. Too sharp for his comfort, which made her perfect. She answered on the second ring. Elora? My throat tightened at the sound of her voice. Hi, Auntie. I know it's been a while. Oh, honey, she said, softer now. I heard about the baby. I was hoping you'd call. I didn't cry. Not yet. But my voice cracked when I said, I need your help. By the next afternoon, I was sitting in her sunlit kitchen, holding Sienna, while Noreen scrolled through the backup files on my tablet. Her lips tightened. This isn't just infidelity, Elora. He's documenting your entire life like a script and sharing it with his mistress. I nodded. He gave her a rundown of my contractions, told her he hoped it would take longer so we wouldn't have to talk about feelings until later. She stared at the screen a while longer, then closed the tablet and placed it down like evidence in a courtroom. I hope you're ready, she said quietly, because I don't lose. Noreen connected me with a high-profile divorce attorney who owed her a favor. His name was Victor Lynn. Cold, elegant, terrifying in a way that made me feel safe. We worked fast, quietly. I didn't want Darren to know a thing. Victor coached me on documentation, financial record pulls, and custody strategy. But the real advantage? The house. Darren thought the house was in our name. But in the early days of our marriage, my mom, before she passed, had helped me buy it. The deed was in my name alone. We'd just refinanced after the wedding, but I never changed the title. I had proof, the papers, the original signatures, all stored in my mother's old fireproof box. I watched Darren every night, watched him laugh with Sienna, cook dinner, kiss me on the forehead like a guilty dog. He thought we were healing. He thought his half-hearted confessions had absolved him. He didn't notice me making copies of the bank statements, didn't ask why I checked the mailbox first every day, didn't question why I suddenly offered to handle the taxes myself. But I noticed everything. Melanie wasn't gone. Their conversations had simply moved to a private email. He used a fake name, Colin, but he made one mistake. One night, after putting Sienna to sleep, he left his phone on the couch. He was in the shower. I waited. 30 seconds. 1 minute. Then I opened it. Used the passcode he never changed. Found the Colin email. And inside, plane tickets. A weekend getaway for Colin and Em. Same weekend as our couples therapy appointment. I took screenshots. I didn't scream. I didn't throw the phone. I just emailed the tickets to Victor. Then I went to the nursery, held Sienna to my chest, and whispered, Mommy's not going to. Let him ruin us. Victor called me the next morning. We'll file everything after he leaves for his flight. You'll change the locks. He'll be served at the hotel. We'll go for full custody, with supervised visitation, and we'll freeze the accounts before he can touch anything. Will it hold? Victor's voice didn't waver. With the emotional neglect during labor? The affair? Yes. And once the judge sees the messages, it'll be over. But I wasn't finished. I didn't want to just win. I wanted Darren to understand what it felt like. So I wrote a letter, folded it, and slid it into his carry-on bag the night before his flight. It read, You missed her first breath. So I'm making sure. You miss everything else too. Have a nice trip, Darren. Elora. Darren left Friday morning in his usual faux suave rush, kissing my cheek, telling me to rest up, with that new smirk I had grown to loathe. The kind that assumed he'd gotten away with everything. He didn't even notice his carry-on felt heavier, didn't check the side pocket, didn't read the letter. Not yet. I watched him from the upstairs window, Sienna resting quietly against my chest. He didn't look back. He never looked back. 4:43 a.m. Victor sent the text. Process server is at the hotel. 12:30 drop. Lock change is booked. Funds frozen. Everything was in motion. The kind of motion you don't stop once it begins. I stood by the front door at exactly 12:32 p.m. Keys jingling in my hand. A locksmith finishing up behind me. Aunt Noreen was inside with Sienna, reading her a book with such calmness you'd never guess she was the silent strategist behind a divorce that would soon go viral in every family gossip chain for miles. I changed the Wi-Fi password, blocked Darren from all shared accounts, logged him out of Netflix, Spotify, even our baby monitor app. Then I took his favorite leather jacket from the closet, the one Melanie had given him for his birthday, and dropped it in a donation bag, with his cologne and the vintage watch he bragged about constantly. By 1:05, the process server confirmed. He was served, in the lobby, in front of her. Melanie. They were checking in. Together. 2 matching rolling bags, her hand on his back, his wedding ring still on. I pictured the moment, Darren smirking, arms around her, and then that familiar tap on his shoulder, a manila envelope in hand. His name on it, her eyes widening as he tried to act confused. Inside the envelope, divorce papers, full custody request, evidence of abandonment during childbirth, digital correspondence with Melanie financial discrepancies, and a photo of him at Lake Windmere Grill, time-stamped at 8:03 p.m., the night Sienna was born. He called by 1:17. Of course he did. I let it ring. Then again. Then again. Finally, I answered, on speaker, with Aunt Noreen beside me. Hello? Elora, what the hell is this? His voice wasn't sad, it was offended, like he had been ambushed. You've been served, I said calmly. Check your email for the full breakdown. Everything's filed. You're seriously doing this? You're trying to ruin me? No, I said softly. You ruined yourself. I'm just making it official. He laughed bitterly. Over. One mistake? I actually smiled. You weren't at a bar, Darren. You were at our restaurant, with her, while I gave birth alone. He went quiet. You think I'm going to let my daughter grow up thinking that's what a man is? He started to speak, but I cut him off. Oh, and you might want to check your carry-on. Click. Aunt Noreen handed me a mug of tea. Her lips twitched with the faintest grin. Brilliantly done, Elora. I let out a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. But I wasn't done. This wasn't just about legal papers and locked doors. This was about taking back the narrative, about rebuilding a life without apology, and soon enough, exposing the lies they'd spun to everyone else, especially those who had blindly sided with them. There were still people to face, still illusions to shatter, and I had a few surprises of my own planned for Melanie. The hardest part wasn't the silence, it was how many people stayed silent with him. Even after the filing, Even after the story began to spread, people still sent me those sugar-coated texts. Hey, just checking in. Hope you're doing okay. I don't want to take sides. As if sides didn't exist. As if what Darren did was some mutual misunderstanding. So I made a choice. If they wouldn't ask questions, I would give them answers. I didn't go online with a rant. I didn't post a sobbing selfie or type a passive-aggressive quote. I posted a photo. Me, holding Sienna. The hospital wristband still on. My eyes tired, but strong. Captioned, "She came into this world while he drank wine at our anniversary spot. With someone else. I labored alone. He shared it with her. But I'm done being silent. And I won't raise a daughter who watches her mother shrink for anyone." It didn't take long. The comments came in waves. Shock, rage, support. People I hadn't heard from in years messaged me. Some cried. Some confessed they suspected something but didn't want to interfere. Melanie's Instagram? Gone in 48 hours. Deactivated. The comments had flooded in too fast, too sharp, too damning. But it wasn't enough. I wanted to face them. Face her. I found out Melanie had joined a mommy group online, trying to build a rebrand, posting inspirational quotes about healing and new beginnings. She was pretending she was the one who had been betrayed. So I signed up, showed up to one of the in-person meetups in town, Sienna in a wrap across my chest. I walked in and saw her instantly, long hair braided down her shoulder, wearing white, like she was innocent. She froze when she saw me. Her lips parted, but I spoke first. Soft. Calm. Please. Don't stop on. My account! The other moms looked between us. Confused, Melanie stood up slowly. Elora, I didn't know you were coming. You didn't know I was in labor either. But that didn't stop you from ordering dessert. A few women gasped. Someone choked on their drink. Melanie flushed. Elora, this isn't the place. No, I think this is exactly the place, I said. A group for mothers. Women trying to support each other. I think they should know who you really are. She tried to step forward, hands out like a peacemaker. Can we talk privately? I shook. My head. Not anymore. You made this public the second you climbed into my life and pretended it belonged to you. I took Sienna's tiny hand and kissed her fingers, then met Melanie's eyes. She's going to grow up knowing what boundaries look like, and how to enforce them. I left before she could respond. Let the room buzz behind me. I didn't need her apology. I didn't want her lies. I wanted her to feel it, the shame she so easily tossed my way. That night, I got a text from Darren. Darren, you humiliated her. Was that really necessary? Me. No, but it was honest. Try it sometime. The next morning, a courier arrived. A manila envelope. No return address. Inside, a torn photo. It was Melanie and Darren. One I hadn't seen before. Her face had been scratched. Out. A single sticky note was attached. You win. For now. I laughed. Out loud, then dropped it in the trash. Because this wasn't about winning. It was about freedom, and I was just getting started. The day the divorce was finalized, the air felt cleaner. Not in the poetic way people describe after closure. I mean, literally. I opened every window in the house, every curtain, every closet. I pulled out Darren's leftover junk from the attic, the garage, the shed, his college trophies, his old whiskey set, even the framed poster from that band he swore changed his life. I stacked it all on the curb, posted a listing, free to whoever wants a liar's leftovers. It was gone by evening. I took Sienna on long walks every morning, just the two of us. Sometimes we stopped for coffee, and I held her on my lap while reading emails from Victor. Darren tried to fight the custody agreement. He lost. He tried to claim I was turning people against him. Victor sent back evidence of the affair, the abandonment, and the financial records Melanie had so kindly emailed him by accident one day. Apparently, the guilt had started to eat at her. Aunt Noreen was right. They were impulsive. They thought lust was immunity, that their betrayal was a phase I'd cry through, not a war I'd prepare for. So when Darren's job found out about the public scandal, the screenshots, the local mommy group drama, the post that went semi-viral, they asked him to take a leave of absence. Translation: You're toxic PR. Stay away. I used the alimony to start something small, a digital consulting business. I already had the marketing background. And now, I had drive. I named it First Breath Consulting. Because the night Sienna came into the world alone with me, that was the night I was reborn too. It grew faster than I expected. Former clients came back. New ones referred friends. A local women's group hired me to run branding for a charity gala. At the gala, I wore red. The same shade Melanie used to wear when she wanted to be the woman people remembered. Except this time, no one remembered her. They remembered me. Bumped into one of Darren's old co-workers that night. She pulled me aside. Elora, I just wanted to say, we all knew something was off, but no one expected you to handle it with such grace. I smiled. It wasn't grace. It was strategy. Sienna turned one not long after. We celebrated quietly. Just close friends. No big show. No fake speeches. No plastic smiles. I looked around and saw real people. People who showed up. People who didn't make excuses when it got uncomfortable. Noreen brought a vintage photo album, full of pictures of my mother holding me as a baby. I cried when I saw them. Because I finally understood what it meant to love from the bones out. Not for attention, not for control, but for truth. That night, after the guests had left and the candles burned low, I opened my laptop. There was an email from Melanie. Subject line: I'm sorry. I didn't click it. I archived it. Permanently. Because I didn't need her words. I didn't want her version of regret. I had something better. A daughter who would never have to watch her mother beg to be loved. It had been 9 months since the divorce. 9 quiet, steady, unshakable months. The kind where you realize healing isn't fireworks. It's the slow rebuild of trust in yourself. It's silence that doesn't hurt. Peace that doesn't feel like waiting for another storm. I had found that peace. Sienna had learned to say, Mama, and I'd learned to smile again without rehearsing it first. Then Darren tried to come back. It started as a voicemail. Hey, Elora, I know it's been a while. I was wondering if we could talk. Just talk. For Sienna's sake. I deleted it. Then came a letter. Handwritten. Like he thought nostalgia would buy him forgiveness. I know I messed up. I see it now. Melanie's gone. She left last month. Said she couldn't live with the weight of everything we did. I think about that night every day. What I missed. What I destroyed. You were always the strong one. Maybe too strong for me. But if there's a way we can be in each other's lives again, even just for Sienna, I'd like that. I'd like to earn your respect back. It wasn't a letter of apology. It was a letter of invitation. An invitation to open the door, to reset the clock, to unknow everything I'd come to know about myself. I sat with it, folded it, put it in Sienna's baby box, not for memory, but for evidence, because men like Darren never reach out without a reason. Sure enough, a week later, I got an email from his lawyer. Darren was requesting a modification to the custody arrangement. He wanted more visitation, more time. A chance to establish a real father-daughter bond. Victor called me within an hour. He's trying to rebrand, Victor said. Now that the PR blowback has quieted and the sympathy stories aren't hitting, he wants back in the narrative. Do we have enough to stop it? I asked. Victor chuckled. Elora, I have a 300-page binder with timelines, screenshots, receipts, and written character testimony. We're not just going to block this motion. He paused. We're going to bury it. Court was scheduled within the month. I didn't. Warn Darren. I didn't acknowledge the letter. I let the silence do its job. But behind the scenes, I was preparing something final. Something elegant. Something no tantrum or lawyer letter could unwrite. The day of the hearing, I wore navy blue. Not black. This wasn't mourning. And not red. This wasn't revenge. Navy. Because I was steady. Unmoving. Unshaken. He showed up in a wrinkled dress shirt and no tie. Tried to look softened. Regretful. Like a man ready to be forgiven. The judge asked for statements. Victor went first. He laid it all out like a thesis. Abandonment. Psychological harm. Fraudulent communication. Broken financial trust. Repeated. Violations of the court's terms. Then he handed the judge a sealed folder labeled Updated Records and Supplemental Evidence. Inside was the one thing Darren never thought I'd keep. The baby monitor recordings from the night I gave birth. Him pacing our living room on the phone with Melanie, laughing, saying, "She's probably screaming by now. I bet it's happening." No, I'm not going. What's the point? It's not like I matter in the story. She'll post about it and cry. Later, then we'll move on. The judge didn't even blink. Motion denied. Custody held. Visitation restricted to supervised once a month. Only if Elora approved in writing. Darren sat there stunned. Like the world had turned unfair. As I stood to leave, I handed Victor one more envelope. A personal one, not legal. It was addressed to Darren. He asked what was inside. Closure, I said. But not for him. Inside the envelope, a copy of Sienna's first birthday invitation. Untouched. Never sent. Across the front in thick black ink I had written, "You chose to miss her first breath. You don't get to ask for seconds." I didn't wait for him to open it. I walked out into the daylight, my heels clicking steady against the floor. Sienna was at home, waiting. Her whole life ahead of her. And I was finally done explaining myself. A year passed. 12 months since. The hearing. 18. Since that night I brought Sienna into the world alone. People often ask me how I did it, how I held my ground, how I walked away from the man I once swore to love, how I raised a daughter while rebuilding a business and reclaiming my name. I never say much, because it wasn't one single moment. It was the morning I stared into a mirror with bloodshot eyes and whispered, "Never again." It was the day I held my daughter's tiny hand and realized she would mirror everything I allowed. It was the moment I understood. Some betrayals don't deserve a scream, just a door that never opens again. I didn't hear much about Darren after court. Someone told me he moved out of state, that he was trying to start over with some new version of himself. Good for him. Melanie apparently got married. To someone else. She sent me a message once, a vague half-apology masked as, "wishing you peace." I never responded. Because real peace? It doesn't come from forgiveness. It comes from knowing you didn't let someone rewrite the truth about who you are. On Sienna's second birthday, I threw her a small garden party. Daisies in mason jars. Soft music. People who showed up because they wanted to, not out of obligation or guilt. Aunt Noreen brought her a tiny gold bracelet, engraved, "Sienna, light after the storm." She wore it like royalty. At one point, I stepped inside to grab more lemonade, and I paused in the hallway. Surrounded by quiet, I saw the framed picture of Sienna's ultrasound. Next to it, her first photo. And next to that, a new one I'd printed the night before. Me, holding her by the ocean, hair tangled, eyes closed, a soft smile. In the caption beneath it, I'd written one line. "She doesn't know what we survived, but one day she'll know what we became." Sienna doesn't ask about her father yet. One day she might. And when she does, I'll tell her the truth. That he wasn't ready. That he made choices. That she was never the mistake. Only the reason I found the strength to leave one behind. Now, when I tuck her in at night, I whisper the same thing into her hair. "You are wanted. You are mine. And you are made of every moment I refuse to give up." And sometimes, when the house is quiet and the wind moves just right through the curtains, I hear a voice in my head that used to sound like his. But now, it sounds like me. Stronger. Still. Unshaken.